At the picnic table, my brother hoisted his beer and declared, "To the shadow who funds it all but never fits in." My mom let out a sharp laugh. My sister chimed in, "Here's to invisible cash." I raised my glass and said, "To invisible cash that just vanished." I took a swig, pulled out my phone and tapped, "Lock all accounts." 30 minutes later, my sister's face was ashen, my dad was swearing under his breath, and my brother's rent payment failed mid-celebration. That picnic hit their wallets hard, and they had it coming. They thought it was just another lazy Sunday gathering, the same park we always used, the same checkered tablecloth my mom swore by for its charm, the same assumptions. Glenn will cover it, Glenn will handle the cleanup, Glenn will be thankful we let him join the adults' table, even though he's pushing 40. But this time was different. This time it cost them. I made sure it did. They wanted something fancy this time. No more cheap hot dogs, Lara texted in the group chat. Scott pushed for ribs and shrimp because why not? It wasn't their money. Lara said she'd handle drinks and showed up with 2 liters of off-brand cola and a 6-pack of cheap beer. My mom called the night before, asking if I could grab extra chairs because Dad's back was acting up. I grinned when she asked. Told her, yeah, no problem, I've got it. Of course I did, I always do. They're experts at taking, every last one of them. When my wife packed up and left with our daughter, they didn't check on me. They asked if I could still help Scott move. When I started pulling night shifts at the warehouse, my mom called to say their fridge was on the fritz. When I didn't reply right away, she sent 4 texts. I wired the money anyway. What else was I spending it on? I rotate the same 3 shirts for work. I keep a duffel in my truck for gym showers. My Tacoma's heater only kicks in at 40 miles an hour. My boots are so worn the soles are splitting. I don't buy for myself, never have, but I paid off their SUV. I covered Lara's car insurance for 4 months because she was between gigs again. I co-signed Scott's apartment lease and fronted the deposit, even though he earns more and works less. So yeah, that picnic was pricey. I booked a local barbecue truck, told them to tack on a service fee, and tipped big. I rented speakers, coolers, tables, and told the rental company to add insurance, knowing nothing would break. It all went on my card. I didn't say a word. When we arrived, it looked flawless. Scott rolled in wearing shades and a sleeveless shirt, acting like he'd orchestrated the whole thing. Lara posted a photo captioned, "Family VIBS 2025, without a hint of who footed the bill. Mom praised the setup and said it was nice to see everyone pitching in for once. I just nodded and smiled. Then came the moment. Scott lifted his beer like he was toasting at a gala. He glanced around, smirking like we were all in on some inside joke. "To the shadow who pays for it all but never belongs." Mom chuckled. Lara clinked her glass and said, "To silent money." And I said, "To silent money that just evaporated." I opened my phone under the table and hit, "Lock all accounts." Joint savings, shared Venmo, the debit card Mom used for groceries, all frozen in seconds. I kept eating my ribs, didn't say a thing. 30 minutes later, the fallout began. Lara tried to order more drinks and her card was declined. Twice. Scott got a push notification about a failed rent payment. Dad approached me, phone in hand, feigning confusion. Asked if the bank was down. I told him to try again tomorrow. They didn't get it yet. They thought it was a glitch, maybe a scam, something outside their control. They didn't realize I'd cut the cord. Not yet, but they would. This was just the opening act, the first twist of the knife. For once, I wasn't going to be the quiet one. I wasn't going to be their personal bank. I was done playing the good guy. They thought they were mocking me. What they didn't know was they'd already lost, and I was just warming up. That night, not one of them reached out. No thank yous, no group chat memes, nothing. That said it all. They were panicking, probably blaming the bank, refreshing their apps. Lara would be freaking out, her life runs on subscriptions. Scott was likely too drunk to notice until the rent issue hit. Mom, though, she'd sensed something was off. She always knew when the ground shifted, even if she didn't grasp why. By morning, the messages started. Lara first. "Hey, did you transfer some money or something?" Like we were business partners, I didn't reply. 10 minutes later. "My card's not working, can you look into it?" I didn't look, I knew why she called twice. Voicemail. At work, I sat in the break room with stale coffee as my phone buzzed nonstop. Dad called, then Scott. Mom left a voicemail, her voice tight but polite. I let them stack up. By noon, Lara emailed. She never emails. Said she was worried about me and asked if I was okay, her way of saying, "Fix this now." I replied with one line, "The accounts are shut." No explanation, I didn't owe her one. Scott called next, all business. His voice was sharp. His rent payment bounced. and the leasing office was threatening to void his move-in if he didn't cover the deposit by Friday. I told him he should have saved some of that beer money for a rainy day. He hung up. That afternoon, I went to his new apartment complex, the one I'd co-signed. I sat in the leasing office while the clerk called the manager. I explained I was withdrawing my application and canceling the deposit. They warned I'd be liable if the lease was finalized. I smiled and told them to check the status. It was still pending. No lease, no obligation. I stopped the payment before I left. Scott showed up at my place 2 hours later, banging on the door like a debt collector. I didn't open it. He paced outside for maybe 15 minutes, calling from his phone, then another number. When I finally opened the door, he was mid-rant. Said I'd screwed him, made him a laughingstock, and derailed his fresh start. I leaned against the frame and asked what kind of fresh start needed my cash to exist. He kept yelling, listing everything he thought he deserved, like he'd rehearsed it. I asked if he remembered when I needed help after my divorce, when I couldn't sleep because I was working nights and breaking down in the work bathroom, when my wife took our daughter to Mexico without telling me until they were gone. He didn't answer. I told him to leave. He muttered something as he walked to his car, some jab he thought would sting. I didn't care. I watched him drive off in the car I'd helped repair last summer. Thursday, Dad left a voicemail, said they'd been talking and wanted to sort things out as a family. Said maybe I'd taken things too personally, but they were ready for a real talk now. He used the phrase shared responsibilities, like he'd read it in a self-help book. I didn't call back. Let them stew. Let them feel the weight I'd carried for years. The loneliness, the pressure, the burden of being useful yet invisible. The best part, this wasn't revenge, not yet. This was me being reasonable. They had no idea how far I could go. But they were about to find out. They were trying to act calm, but it was falling apart faster than they could handle. Lara posted an Instagram story, just her shoes on a deck with the caption, "Some people reveal themselves when it's inconvenient." Vague enough for her followers, but I knew it was aimed at me. Scott shared a meme about fake loyalty, tagging no one, real subtle. What they didn't know was I'd already gone further. The same day I locked the accounts, I logged into the utilities portal. I'd been covering their electricity and water since 2021. They always said they'd pay me back when things settled down. Guess what never settled? So I canceled the autopay, removed the card on file, marked it as relocating. 2 days later, Mom texted, "Is something wrong with the utility payments? I got a disconnection notice." I didn't respond. It wasn't cruel. Not really. I'd given them years of my life. I paid bills while they took vacations. I skipped doctor visits while they remodeled. I sold my old baseball cards to cover their late tax bill. And I never rubbed it in. Never made them feel small for needing me. But they made me feel small, constantly. Like when Scott said I couldn't keep a wife. Or when Lara mocked my worn-out sneakers, asking if I was going minimalist. Or when Dad said it was probably for the best I didn't have my daughter full-time, given my work hours. That one burned. So no, I didn't feel bad when Lara texted on Sunday asking if I'd canceled her Spotify account. I had. Along with the shared Hulu and the phone plan I was still paying for because she swore the family deal was cheaper. She said she was locked out of everything and called it immature. I replied, I agree. Then nothing. By Monday, they switched tactics. Guilt turned to negotiation. Mom called, saying she missed how things were. Said she didn't want money, just a conversation. Then asked if I'd reactivate the card, just for 1 month until their new payment method processed. Scott texted the same day. I know we've got problems, but this is too much. Lara went silent, but I saw she updated her LinkedIn with a job she didn't have. Probably trying to find someone else to co-sign a lease. Good luck. I wasn't angry anymore. That was the odd part. It felt like tidying up, like scrubbing a stain that had been there for years. One step at a time until the air felt lighter and the ground wasn't sticky anymore. I started cooking real meals again. Even bought new shoes, not fancy, just ones that didn't creak when I walked. It felt strange to buy something for myself. I stood in the store holding the box for 15 minutes before I let myself check out. That's when I realized what this was, not vengeance, subtraction, and I wasn't finished. By Thursday, I expected more noise, another guilt trip voicemail, another cryptic Instagram post from Scott acting unfazed. Instead, I got something unexpected. Lara on my doorstep. She hadn't been to my place since my divorce. I knew it wasn't a friendly visit. Nobody in this family shows up without a motive. She wore sunglasses like she was hiding. In her hand, a thick manila envelope. She didn't ask to come in, just sat on the porch step and said she wasn't here to argue. Inside the envelope were scraps, not trash, receipts. Old bank transfers, post-its, scribbled IOUs. Copies of checks I'd sent over the years, some I'd forgotten about. Rent payments, car repairs, a $700 transfer labeled for the lease THX. At least 10 different handwriting samples, mostly hers. She said she'd been clearing out her place because she was thinking of moving. Maybe Arizona, or back to Texas where an old friend owed her a favor. Then she said something odd. "I think I ruined everything, not just with you, with everyone." She paused like she wanted to cry but wasn't sure I'd care. Then she dropped a bombshell. That $1,200 I gave her in 2020, the one she said was for rent to avoid eviction. She admitted some of it went to a guy she was dating. A married guy. He'd threatened to share texts she sent him. She was too ashamed to tell me and thought she could handle it alone. She couldn't. I sat in the doorway, unsure what to say. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because I couldn't tell if she was being real or just changing strategies. Then she said she wasn't asking for money, just wanted me to know she was sorry, and that she wouldn't bother me again. She left the envelope on the step and walked to her car. Didn't look back. It should have felt like a breakthrough. Like maybe this could be fixed. But then came the next shock. Scott tried to use my identity. I got an email from a bank I didn't know asking to verify a loan application. They said the email on the application was off by 1 digit, LendFast 32 instead of 23, just enough to slip through. The bank rep said it was flagged because some documents looked copied. I knew what it was. An old W-2, probably one I sent Scott when he needed proof of income for some failed side hustle. That broke something in me I thought was already gone. I filed a fraud report, locked every account, changed every password. And for the first time, I made sure his name was flagged in every financial system I could access. It felt clean, sharp, long overdue. Then I called his old landlord. I didn't lie, just told the truth. Said Scott left damage at his last place. Said he used someone else's info to secure his new lease. She sounded tired but thankful. Said he'd already missed the first utility payment. She said I knew he was full of it. I said, we all did, took me longer. But nothing prepared me for what came next. An unknown number from Mexico called my phone. I almost ignored it. It was the school nurse at my daughter's school in Merida. She said my daughter listed me as an emergency contact, and they couldn't reach her mother for 2 days. My ex had gone to Cancun with her new boyfriend and left our daughter with a neighbor, who then left for work and didn't come back. I froze, couldn't speak for a moment. The nurse said, "We don't want to alarm you, but this isn't okay, you should come." I packed a bag and drove to the airport. Booked the first flight to Mexico City, then to Merida. I didn't tell anyone, didn't notify work, just went. During the layover, Scott texted, "You're really cutting off your whole family over cash?" I didn't reply. Then Mom, "What's happening to us?" I started typing a response. Then deleted it. I had bigger priorities. My daughter was alone in a country where I had no legal rights, and not one of them had ever asked about her. In that moment, all the anger I'd been carrying turned into something else. Something focused. I wasn't done. I was just redirecting. I landed in Merida just after midnight. The airport was nearly empty, just a few cabs and some locals waiting for family. I hadn't checked any bags, just had my passport and a backpack. One mission, get my daughter. The nurse gave me the neighbor's address, a place on the edge of town I didn't know. I paid the driver extra to wait while I knocked. She was asleep when I got there, curled up on a couch in a house that smelled like dust and old cooking oil. The neighbor was some guy in his 60s who barely spoke English. He looked as lost as I felt. Said her mother went to Cancun. For a few days, with a friend, then stopped answering. I thanked him, picked up my daughter, and took her to a hotel. She didn't ask why I was there, just hugged me and said she missed me. I said it back. We stayed there 4 days, just us. I took her to the beach one morning. We ate tacos and ice cream, wandered through markets, watched Spanish cartoons. It was the first time I felt like a father in 3 years. My ex texted on day 5. "Everything good." That was it. I didn't respond. Instead, I went to a lawyer the nurse recommended and asked about custody or filing for neglect. I knew it was a long shot, but I had to try. Back home, things were collapsing. Scott's lease was canceled. The leasing company asked if I wanted to press fraud charges. I said I was thinking about it. Lara posted a selfie with the caption, "Some people only love you when they can use you." She probably thought it was deep. Mom sent a long text, said I was becoming someone they didn't know, that I was acting out of spite and tearing the family apart. She said they'd forgive me if I stopped being so harsh. I stared at the message for 10 minutes, then replied, "I forgave you all too many times, you just called it duty." I turned off my phone. When I got back to the States, I had one goal: total break. I canceled everything still in my name, even the $5.99 subscription to Mom's recipe app. I called the phone company and cut Lara off the family plan. I deleted every shared Dropbox folder, even the one with Dad's tax files. Let him sort it out. Scott showed up at my job the next week. Walked into the warehouse like we were friends. Sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. He tried to pull me aside, said he wanted to talk like men. Said, "I get you're mad, but you've made your point. We're done, right?" I told him I wasn't done, not by a long shot. He called me weak. Said I was petty and spiteful. Then I said something unplanned, something final. "You were never family, you were just a bill." That stopped him. He stood there a moment, then left, didn't look back. That night Mom called, voicemail, said she didn't know what to do anymore, that the family was crumbling, that I was scaring her with how distant I'd become. She said, "I don't even know you anymore." And for the first time I felt peace, because I finally knew who I was and it wasn't their bank account. A month went by, silence became normal, my phone stayed quiet. No texts from Mom, no shady Instagram stories from Lara, no fake apologies from Scott. The group chat was dead. It was the most calm I'd felt in years. I got visitation rights in Mexico. Not full custody, but a start. My daughter could visit for holidays. I started fixing up my spare room, cleared out the junk, painted it blue, bought her a desk. The first real furniture I'd bought in ages. I still wore the same jeans, still drove the same truck, but everything felt new. Then, just when I thought it was over, they tried one last move. Lara's idea, no doubt. She messaged me out of nowhere, said they wanted to meet. As a family, no fighting, just to clear things up. I ignored it. 3 days later, Mom sent a letter, not an email. An actual envelope with her handwriting like it was 1995. Inside was a photo of us from a decade ago, laughing at some lake house. A note said, "Before all this, please, let's talk." I looked at it for a while, then I drove over. Didn't tell them I was coming, just showed up. They were all there, Mom, Dad, Lara, Scott. It felt like they'd practiced their lines, like they thought if they could get me in a room, they could undo it all. Scott spoke first, tried to be funny. "So the runaway wallet's back." I didn't laugh. Mom said they understood now that things had gone too far, that I needed space. But we were still family. That had to count for something. I waited, let them talk. Let them spill every excuse, every rewritten story. Then I told them how I saw it. I told Mom she never shielded me from Dad's subtle jabs, and I wasn't her safety net. I told Lara she treated people like tools and expected praise for doing nothing. I told Scott he was a parasite and not even a clever one. Then I said something I wished I could take back, but I said it anyway. "You're not my family, you're just people I grew up with." The room went silent. Mom looked like I'd hit her. Lara stood up. Scott mumbled something about me being unhinged. I stood there a moment longer, then left. No goodbye, no second chances. Driving home, the guilt hit. I replayed every word. Thought about calling Mom, softening it, maybe offering a half apology. But I didn't. Because this time, the silence wasn't about abandonment. It was about freedom. They wouldn't change, and I wasn't going back. 3 days later, I blocked them all, not out of spite, out of necessity. I chose my daughter. I chose myself. I chose a future without strings tied to guilt and duty. And for the first time in years, I could breathe deeply. Update: 2 weeks after I blocked them, a letter arrived. Certified mail. No return address, just my name in neat cursive on the envelope. I thought it might be trouble, maybe Scott pulling something again. I almost didn't open it. Inside was a check. $4,200. No explanation, just a note on a ripped notepad page. Sold the TV, sold some jewelry. This should cover some of what I owe. Don't expect more. I'm not trying to fix anything, just don't want to owe you. It wasn't signed, but it was Lara. I knew her handwriting and her tone, half remorse, half defiance. Classic her. I didn't deposit it right away. It sat on my counter for 4 days. I'd glance at it while pouring coffee, pass it on my way to bed, think about shredding it. Part of me wondered if it was a trap. Part of me wondered if it was genuine. But mostly I was shocked. Lara never gave anything back. Not favors, not borrowed clothes, not money. And now here she was, selling her things to settle a debt she once swore wasn't real. I cashed it on the 5th day. Not because I needed it, because I wanted to know what it felt like to take something back. Something I never thought I'd see. So, what are your thoughts on this story? Do you agree with what happened, or do you see it differently? Let us know your opinion in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories. See you in the next one.